Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Friday. It's October 6th. It is 2023. Here to talk Week 5 NFL, as always, joined by my good friend Keith Eister, Eys819. Keith, we got a Friday football podcast. Well, Thursday night recording, but pushed it back. We're watching your Bears dominate the Commanders. I know you're feeling good about that one, but as a Bears fan, you're probably not feeling too good because they are the Bears. How's it going, my friend?
Yeah, very, very similar looking game to last week against the Broncos. They were up 28-3, took the 27-3 lead into halftime here, and Washington immediately marched it down the field to start the second half. So we'll see if this Bears defense holds up, but I think there's going to be a lot of scoring on the Washington side. We'll see if the Bears let up and just kind of let them back in the game, or if they keep pressing. Unfortunately, looks like they're going to be without some running backs here. Khalil Herbert just went down after Roschon Johnson was down early. So not sure if they're going to be able to sit on the football here. They might have to keep throwing.
Yeah, that 3 and out. We'll see. Logan Thomas. I was telling Keith, like, I have a really, really good DFS team going that just kind of needs Robinson to, maybe get like 15 fantasy points. That'd be fantastic. So we'll see how that game
you were all over DJ Moore on the podcast last night. Shout out to you. You nailed that one. He had his over receiving prop within the first couple minutes of the game. He had doubled it up by the time the first quarter was over. So a monster performance from DJ Moore.
Yeah, I mean, you love to see the aggressiveness from Chicago, right? They, won the toss and they're like, hey, we want the ball. And yeah, I mean, if they could play a good second half, I mean, that's kind of what they did last week, is just not play a good second half. So excited to talk Week 5, Week 4 in the books. Week 4 for me, not great. I had a lot of pieces right, and the pieces that I had wrong, I was way overweight on those pieces, and it just wasn't a good week. I had a ton of Zach Moss last week. So much Zach Moss. He's one of my highest owned players, and he just didn't have a good week. So he was one of them. There was a couple others. We were on a lot of the right things. Overall, missed on a few pieces. My first losing week of the season, so I can't complain too much. So we'll see if we can bounce back here in Week 5. I love this slate, by the way. I think this slate is a lot of fun. A lot of ways to approach it. Keith, Week 4 for you, Week 5 overview. What do you got for me?
Yeah, Week 4 was okay. Another small profit. I didn't really have any sweats, though. Just a bunch of min cashes. Like you said, we were on a lot of good stuff. Had enough digs. Had a bunch of McCaffrey, which really bailed me out. I was underweight on Kyron Williams, which he had another 2 touchdowns. Just continues to get there, man. Feels like a guy that would be safe to fade. But he continues to fall in the end zone. Had a bunch of Puka again. That really worked out. Nico Collins, another one we were on pretty heavy. So yeah, I mean, small profit, but nothing serious. Didn't even really have a sweat at the end. Was just kind of hoping to stay in the green. Managed to do that. But nothing big for me. Just almost a break-even week.
Yeah, I mean, that's sometimes break-even weeks are okay. We do this for 18 weeks, and obviously the playoffs, and we get the Thanksgiving slates where that feels like an extra week. But I mean, overall, you're never mad about break-even weeks. Like, you're gonna have those weeks where you're hoping for break-even when some of the stuff starts going down. I ended up way underweight on Williams, maybe it was a mistake, but I mean, it just he crushed, and obviously it's going to be a spot that we're going to talk about again on this slate because of his usage. So I'm a lot further along in my research than I typically am when we do the football podcast, because we usually record on Wednesdays. But with baseball season winding down and a couple weeks before basketball, we waited an extra day, and feel really good about where I'm at. So let's jump in and talk
smaller slate this week. We've got the London game and some bye weeks, so only 10 games this time.
It's fun. It's a fun slate. So we get started here. Houston at Atlanta, 41.5 total. Atlanta a 1.5 point favorite in this game. We'll go to the Houston side first. I mean, one of the biggest surprises I feel like for most people this season has been the passing attack for Houston, and what CJ Stroud, what Nico Collins, what Tank Dell has been able to do. Dameon Pierce last week was on his rushing prop last week. He got there finally had a good rushing game. I think he had like 80 plus yards. So that kind of worked out. I don't love the matchup in this game overall, just because of like how slow this game potentially could be. But is this a spot we just continue to ride like Nico Collins, Tank Dell? They're still cheap. I don't think you necessarily have to pair them with CJ Stroud. And do we just keep looking at these two pass catchers here?
Yeah, I'm a little more interested in this game environment than you. I think it's in the dome in Atlanta. That definitely helps. It could be slow pace, like you mentioned, but CJ Stroud has looked incredible. He looks like the best quarterback in this class early on. I mean, obviously Richardson, we knew he was going to take some development, and Bryce Young doesn't quite have the pass catchers around him that Stroud does, but Stroud has looked incredible. I have some interest in playing him here against a bad Atlanta defense. We know where the ball's going. Like you mentioned, Nico Collins has had an awesome target share here. Another 9 for him last week, 168 yards, just continues to put up monster games. I don't think the price is quite caught up to his role in his production so far. So Nico Collins is going to be, again, one of my higher owned wide receivers. Tank Dell, if you want to go for the double stack, certainly don't mind him. A little bit of a down week for him last week, but definitely looks like a very talented wide receiver. Still just 4,800. I'm good taking some shots there on Tank Dell. Did see Dalton Schultz find the end zone last week as well. 3,400. A tight end has just been a complete wasteland this year. So I think you just kind of keep spreading it around and hoping to find the touchdowns here. Dalton Schultz will be a small piece of my build. Not so much interested in Dameon Pierce. The Atlanta run defense has looked okay. And the efficiency for him just has not quite paid off. So I'm on the Houston passing attack, and I feel like they like them. I was a little surprised to see them open up as underdogs here. Houston has looked really good. Atlanta has looked inept outside of Bijan Robinson. So I feel like Houston can win this game, and I think they do it on the back of their passing game.
I don't disagree with you as far as like if they win this game, it's going to be from the passing attack. Like Atlanta has been really solid against the run, like graded 3rd overall on Pro Football Focus for run defense this season. So, but they're 26 in pass DVOA. So, I mean, let's be honest. This is a spot. If Houston is going to continue to attack through the air, we could see a big game from Collins. We could see a big game from Dell. And I mean, they're still so cheap that like it's really hard for me to say like we can't have exposure or interest in them because they just keep crushing. They seem like they want to throw the football as much as possible. So it's hard for me. Like you said, I worry about Atlanta running the ball down Houston's throat and just controlling the clock in this game. And we're going to talk about Bijan. And that's my biggest concern is just Atlanta. But I mean, looking at like pace stats, because I was like, oh, this game might go slow. Atlanta actually plays pretty fast. So maybe this is an underrated spot that I need to look into more. And you might be onto something here. So Atlanta side of this game, I mean, I just kind of hinted at it. I think Bijan Robinson's the best running back play on the entire slate. Like, I hate the fact that like I don't even know if we want to call it like a split because Bijan is still like not coming off the field whatsoever. I mean, like they're playing him in the slot, they're moving him around. He's still on the field a ton, so I don't know if I necessarily want to say a split, but I mean, you still worry about Algier doing a little bit, but I mean, how can you not love Bijan Robinson in this spot at home as a favorite against Houston?
Yeah, I completely agree. He's the best running back play on the slate. The role, even though doesn't have like an 80% snap share or anything, the role is still incredible. He's received at least 5 targets in all 4 games, so still involved in the passing game. Game script proofed in that regard. I mentioned it. I don't really love Atlanta as home favorites here, but Bijan will be involved even if they're playing from behind. So feel super safe about him. The Houston run defense has been something we've attacked for years. They're only slightly better. They were the worst rush defense in football last year, only slightly better this year. Bijan's just not pricey enough for his role here. Game script proof, absolutely love it. I'm not looking anywhere else on Atlanta. It's that's why I love like this game stack is because you know exactly where to go. It's Stroud, Collins, and Dell if you want to double stack it. And then on the Atlanta side, it's very obviously Bijan Robinson for me. I have no interest in the Atlanta passing attack. Desmond Ridder has looked like the worst quarterback in football. Kyle Pitts is playing banged up. It looks like he just doesn't look like the same athletic freak that he was coming out of Florida. Drake London is really frustrating. So no interest in the Atlanta passing attack. It's all Bijan Robinson for me.
I will say, like, if you're going to double stack and play Stroud, I wouldn't mind running it back with like a Mac Hollins or Kyle Pitts just because of the price. Like, Mac Hollins has been very involved in the red zone. You really need him to score a touchdown, but they've been taking shots with him deep as well. So like you could see like a 40-yard touchdown from Mac Hollins at 3,300 on your double stack run back. I wouldn't mind it. I mean, Kyle Pitts, like you said, last week they trailed almost the entire game to Jacksonville. He still only had 4 targets. So really just don't know what to expect from Kyle Pitts at this point. Like you said, maybe he is playing banged up. Maybe it's just a really tough spot. So yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. I mean, I definitely like your thought process on how condensed potentially this game is overall. I mean, those are the types of games that I like to stack. Carolina at Detroit, 44.5 total in this game. Detroit, a 10-point favorite. They opened at 8.5. It's already at 10. Detroit, a huge home favorite in this game. We'll go to Carolina first. I mean, the one thing that I feel like we've agreed on a lot here over the last 2 weeks has just been Adam Thielen is healthy. Bryce Young has found his safety blanket in Thielen. You know, do we continue that in a matchup here against Detroit? I mean, Detroit's defense has been great this season, but they're still giving up a lot of passing yards per game. Is Thielen the guy? I mean, tight ends have crushed Detroit to start the season. Do we take some tournament shots on Hayden Hurst? What are your thoughts here on Carolina?
It is Adam Thielen for me. I have no interest in using Bryce Young to stack, but I do want Adam Thielen, particularly on the other side as a mini stack of one of the guys we'll talk about from Detroit. But Thielen is my primary run back here for Carolina. I don't mind a little DJ Chark. He's getting shots deep down the field. If he connects on one of those, he could have a big week. He's only 4K, so a little value option there, but definitely prefer Thielen. I'm out on Hayden Hurst. Just haven't seen the role since week 1. And that week 1, if you remember, Adam Thielen came into that game banged up and didn't look quite right. Certainly not as good as he's looked the last 3 weeks. So I feel like Thielen is kind of operating in the same areas of the field as Hayden Hurst. And Thielen is just way ahead of him right now. So Thielen about the only piece from Carolina I'm interested in, a little sprinkle of DJ Chark.
Yeah, I mean, Thielen, my main target here as well. Don't mind the DJ Chark call. I will have like Hayden Hurst in my player pool. I mean, just because of how bad this team has been against tight ends this year, this could just be one of those games we see him have. Sorry, I'm watching DJ Moore take another. Oh, they said he stepped out. I thought he was about to take another one to the house. Oh gosh, that would have been. Anyway, sorry. Totally distracted by that. But yeah, Hayden Hurst is someone that isn't like a heavy target guy, but he's still running a ton of routes. And they really don't use, I guess maybe you could look at like a Terrence Marshall. But like my problem with Terrence Marshall is he's done so well here recently because Mingo got the concussion in the middle of the third game of the week or week 3, sat week 4, but he's back. So I mean, maybe you take shots on Jonathan Mingo, who we really didn't get to see without DJ Chark. So like, how is that going to shape up? Is DJ Chark going to be the number 2? Is it going to be Mingo? I think we can both agree though, Adam Thielen is the guy. And we don't really have to overthink this. This is the spot for Adam Thielen to continue to get targets and catches. And if he scores a touchdown, he's looking really good. But either way, at this price, we're just targeting the targets. Detroit side of this game, I mean, Carolina has been atrociously bad against the run this year. Just so bad. St. Brown is banged up. Josh Reynolds is banged up. That's definitely something to note. If either one of them were to miss this game, I feel like we really got to bump up Laporta, who's already looking great in this offense. But like could be a safety blanket if St. Brown is out. That's a huge hit to this offense. You could potentially take shots on Raymond. I think Raymond has more ceiling than Marvin Jones Jr. If one of those guys sit, I would probably prefer taking shots on Raymond. But I mean, all this to say, David Montgomery is way underpriced on DraftKings this week.
Yeah, David Montgomery is the number one option here. Carolina's been terrible against the run, like you mentioned. I love playing Goff at home. Like, he's been far better. His home road splits are ridiculous, even dating back to LA, but especially since he's been here in Detroit. He just plays awesome in the dome here. But this feels like a David Montgomery spot for sure. 6,600 against one of the worst run defenses in football. Sign me up for that. His role is incredible. We saw Jamal Williams dominate in a similar role last season. They've swapped out a more talented running back. David Montgomery is a better runner than Jamal Williams. He's still getting a ton of goal line touches. They gave it to him 32 times last game. So if they are up in this game, which I fully intend they will be, they're a much better team than Carolina. David Montgomery could be in line for another 25 to 30 touches here. Like, just way too cheap for this role. That said, I don't want to leave out Jahmyr Gibbs. Also, just because of how bad the run defense is, he's going to be unowned compared to David Montgomery. He has that massive big play ability. I look at this as kind of how we saw Mostert and Achane go off in the same game against Denver. Like, it's that good of a spot where I could see both of these running backs getting here. Gibbs at 5,900. I have a lot of interest here, especially if the ownership numbers hold, pretty much unowned. And you mentioned the wide receivers being banged up too. They might just take it easy on the wide receivers here and just turn around and hand it off to the running backs a ton in this spot. So Montgomery's one of the top plays on the slate. I love Gibbs in large field tournaments as a very low-owned play. I don't think I need to get to Goff stacks this week just because the wide receiver being a little bit banged up. I do like your Laporta call. He looks like a really talented tight end, maybe one of the most talented tight ends in the league. So definitely have some interest there. I think Detroit rolls in this game. I think the running backs both have a really big day.
Yeah, I mean, I think the running backs are in a great spot. I love the fact that you brought up Gibbs. I will note that, like, St. Brown expected to play. Josh Reynolds, this has been like 2 or 3 weeks, and they've just kind of capped his practices, but he's been playing. So, like, I expect them to be full strength, but I don't think that really changes my thought process on the running back situation.
What about Jameson Williams? He's coming back there.
Yeah, I was so like, I was thinking about that as well. He's 4K. If he has a big game, we're not going to get this price ever again. Where does he fit in is my problem. Like, kind of just trying to figure out. Reynolds has carved up a role with Williams out, and like Raymond is like this like nifty player that they use in certain situations. So it's like, is Williams going to take some snaps from Reynolds? Because, I mean, St. Brown's not coming off the field. If he's healthy and they have him out there, he's not coming off the field. Does Williams hurt Laporta? I don't know, because like TJ Hawkinson did so well in this offense. Like, it's tough, but I mean, it just goes back to my thought process on David Montgomery this week.
Yeah.
I will say that Justin Fields just missed DJ Moore for an easy touchdown, and that David Montgomery is much, much more expensive on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. So I like him a lot more on DK. I noticed that when I was doing my expert rankings for this week over there in RotoGrinders Premium. Moving on, we got Tennessee at Indianapolis. Hey, I said it right this time. 42.5. Tennessee, a 2.5 point favorite in this game. I want to play something from this game. I think there's going to be scoring in this game. I would love to hear your thoughts here on Tennessee, because I'm struggling with where I want to get exposure to this game.
Yeah, it does seem like a game environment we should want to target, right? Indianapolis has been playing pretty fast this season, really fast, actually. I'm struggling with this Tennessee side as well. Like, I'm not sure that I want to play Derrick Henry. I definitely want a positive game script for Derrick Henry. I think Tennessee can play from ahead in this game, but I'm not positive about it. Which kind of leads me to DeAndre Hopkins. And like, he saw the monster target share week 1, but we really haven't seen that since then, even with Treylon Burks missing last week. Burks is questionable again this week. I'm just not sure that Ryan Tannehill can get him the ball enough. The Indy secondary is not great. So it seems like a good DeAndre Hopkins spot for me. The tight end situation, I've played a bunch of Chig this year, and it just has not worked out. Just cannot get any traction in this offense. He's getting a couple of targets, but he's not really doing anything with them. He's still 3,200. I probably end up taking a few shots there again. But I think Hopkins is going to be my main target here.
See, this is like one of those games I have circled for Hopkins where it's like, does he get like 10 plus targets and this is how they move the ball down the field? I mean, I think he's cheap on FanDuel. Looking at my rankings here on my notes, Hopkins must be cheap on FanDuel because I have him ranked as my third wide receiver on FanDuel CVR wise. So check that. But I mean, even at 5,700, I like this price tag on DraftKings as well. I mean, just honestly looking at this spot, I mean, Derrick Henry, tough spot against Colts run defense. You would just, on paper, it's like, this is a perfect nuke spot. Like, can Tannehill step up? I mean, that's the problem, right? Ryan Tannehill has been awful.
He is the problem.
He's been
and their
awful.
Offensive line is not great either, which does not help anything. But
they're only throwing the ball 25 times per game. So, like, Hopkins has a 27.5% target share. But when you're only throwing the ball 25 times per game, I mean, it's just the upside is limited. But, I mean, I really think the only person I'm going to play from Tennessee this week is Hopkins. If Burks is out, we talked about this last week. If Burks is out, I think you could take shots on Westbrook. He's still really cheap. He had a long touchdown last week. That was nice. One of the things that I got right on some builds, but again, way too many things wrong. It's just one of those weeks. Listen, I'm never afraid to say when I'm wrong about something. I was wrong about a few things last week. All right, let's talk Colts. Jonathan Taylor, full practice Wednesday, full practice Thursday. I mean, we assume he comes back, right? Like, I mean, that's the assumption. It sounds like him and Cooper Kupp, the two biggest names anyway. Sounds like they're both going to play. We'll see tomorrow. We're like I said, we're recording Thursday night. We'll see. I think they activate Friday, or is it Saturday that they can activate them? I think Friday.
It's Saturday.
All right.
I'm not sure.
Either way, we'll see how that kind of pans out. My problem is, like, the Colts running offense is graded as the worst running offense in football this season. And I think it's just a lot to do with, like, Anthony Richardson and, like, how he's been, I mean, tucking and running so much. The passing offenses look terrible, but, like, I mean, last week, Anthony Richardson, 30 fantasy points. Like, and like, he did it on 256 total yards. He scored 30 fantasy points last week with 2 fumbles. So, I mean, what are we looking at? Like, I like this spot for Pittman on paper. Last week was the first week he didn't have 10 plus targets. I think they tried to get him back involved in this game. It's a tough matchup for the running backs anyway. Tennessee, we get 2 pass funnels. Like, both of these teams are pass funnels. They both try to shut down the run. Is this a week, Keith, where we're like, maybe we just build some Richardson, Pittman, Hopkins stacks and just play the pass funnel angle to this game?
Yep, I think that's where I'm at, which is wild to say in a game that contains Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor. But like, it's the way that these two teams play defense. You nailed it. It's a really tough landing spot here for Jonathan Taylor. Who knows what his conditioning is like? He's sat out the entire season up to this point. So first action of the year for him. And Tennessee is a really good run defense. So I'm looking at pass catchers here. Richardson, because of that rushing upside, like, he can run in 2 touchdowns in any matchup. So he's always going to be in play for me. He's a guy that, like, big mobile quarterback who's just impossible to defend down on the goal line. So I'm going to be on some Anthony Richardson here. And then the Tennessee pass funnel makes me want to play a pass catcher with him as well. Michael Pittman, like you mentioned, a little bit of a down week last week with Richardson coming back. He did see double-digit targets in the first 3 games of the season, though. I think that Indy's least path of resistance is going to be through the air here. So give me some Michael Pittman. Give me a little bit of Josh Downs also. He's had a fairly decent role. His monster game was with Minshew. That's worth noting. The 12 targets, I think, were kind of a product of how Minshew plays. But still, even the first 2 games with Richardson, he saw 7 and 5 targets. So Downs at 3,700 is still in play against a pass funnel defense. I've talked about these 3K tight ends. Like, Kylan Granson's had a pretty decent role. I'll probably continue to keep him in my pool. I don't mind double stacking Richardson because of the price of Granson. and downs even. I think most of them I limit to a single stack, but because you do have those other 2 cheap pieces, I don't mind if I squeeze in a couple of the Richardson doubles.
Yeah, I mean, Granson at tight end, the targets are there, tight end target wise. So, he had a touchdown or a red zone target where he had a shot to score a touchdown last week, and it didn't work out. So I think he dropped it, or it was an interference or something. I can't remember.
I think he stretched for the pylon and came up like half a yard short. I remember that play. That might have been the week before. He was very, very close, though, for sure.
So just really quick on Richardson, like playing him solo is something you could potentially do as well. Like
for sure.
Week 1, 22 fantasy points. Houston, first quarter, 17 fantasy points before leaving with a concussion. And then 30 fantasy points last week. So, a guy that we came into the season drafting for ceiling and in best ball, and it's panning out so far. We'll see. It's still very early in the year. We'll see how it pans out. But moving on. We got my Fins, man. We got smashed last week. Shout out to the Buffalo Bills. They looked fantastic against my Fins last week. We got a 47.5 total. Miami is an 11.5 point favorite in this game for good reason, because the Giants have been atrociously bad. Let's go Giants side first. I watch a lot of Dolphins games, Keith. A lot of Dolphins games. If Saquon plays, he's one of my favorite running back plays on the entire slate. His workload, we know the upside and the ceiling is there. Limited Wednesday, limited Thursday. It's an ankle. It's a high ankle sprain. He could or could not play here. The problem, if he doesn't play, the Giants are going to be trailing, and they are definitely going to have a game script against a below average defense that you like, but it's like, who the heck do you play? Because none of them make sense. Even Waller hasn't been involved. So talk to me here about the Giants.
Yeah, I really hope Saquon plays in this one, because obviously we want to play some Miami players. How in the world do the Giants keep up if they don't have Saquon Barkley? So I'm with you. I hope Saquon plays. I love him if he does play. The field is generally hesitant to play guys coming off of injury their first week back. They want to see it for a week, right? Let's go ahead and jump on in this matchup, and just hopefully he puts up a big game. The ankle looks good. He doesn't re-aggravate it. I think you get him at pretty low ownership here. So love the Saquon call. I'm right there with you. The other guy who I think is going to gain some steam here is Wan'Dale Robinson. He's only 3K. He's received 6 targets and 5 targets since he's kind of been active the last 2 weeks, starting to really find a role. They're scheming up plays for him, a lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage, screen passes and things like that. So Wan'Dale's going to be involved. He has a role. He's 3K. I certainly don't mind him as a run back, but I really want Saquon to play here to try to keep this game somewhat close. Still don't think it'll be close, but
Robinson at 3K too is absolutely fantastic on game stacks and stacks you're looking at just in general here. So love the Robinson call, 11 targets over his first 2 games. As far as running routes, Slayton is still at the top of the list. His targets are all over the place. He doesn't do much. He's like a poor man's Adam Thielen. I definitely like the Robinson call. I think Waller is playable in this spot. I just wish he was a little bit cheaper, but I guess the upside is what you're paying for Waller. So price doesn't matter. Price doesn't matter as much on Waller. I just wish he was a little bit cheaper, because really he hasn't shown that ceiling. But game script wise, it's a good game script for the passing game for the Giants. I really, like you said, I really hope that we get Barkley playing in this game.
Yeah. Waller, I do have, I want to play some Waller. Everybody saw him, he was popular on the Showdown slate. Obviously, the national audience is on him.
Yeah.
And everybody saw him fail in that game. I don't think anybody's playing him here. And double-digit targets would absolutely not surprise me in this spot. If Barkley sits, I think Waller is the guy I would look to, just because he could legitimately see double-digit targets if they're down by 3 scores.
Yep. Curtis Samuel, man, I have a fire team. If Robinson did anything in this game, I have a team with Fields, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Logan Thomas that has Robinson at captain. Shout out to me for picking the wrong captain. I could have played anybody else there. Let's talk Dolphins.
This game's hard, man.
It's fun. It's fun. I mean, when you predict the game script of Robinson getting 25 carries and he gets I think he's at 10 or something. It's just not what you're hoping for. But Dolphins, Giants defense stinks. The Dolphins put up 40 plus in this spot if they keep the gas pedal down. I mean, I love the running situation. We just don't know what it's going to look like here. In general, it sounds okay. So everything I've read is Jeff Wilson's still not going to be back this week. He's dealing the injury that he's dealing with, the midsection injury. They haven't really talked too much about his injury, but it doesn't sound like he's going to be back this week. I mean, ceiling wise, it seems like A-Chain has the higher ceiling right now, just big playability. But this on paper seems like an excellent spot for Mostert to get 20 carries and then just run the ball down Giants' throats. I just don't know if Miami is going to do that ever. I mean, they are just so fast-paced. The problem, Keith, is we want to play everybody from the Dolphins. We just got to figure out who we want to play because the Giants stink and who has that ceiling. Is this a spot we go back to Tua? Is this a spot we go back to Tyreek? All those answers are yes. It's just, can the Giants keep up? Can the Giants keep this game competitive? I think is the biggest question we're all asking this week.
Yeah, I agree. And the answer is yes, like you said. Just, do you want to play this Dolphin? Yes. The Tua double stacks, we know they have serious ceiling. We haven't seen Waddle really pop off yet this season. So I'm hoping he kind of gets left behind and the ownership is low for him, because I'm just going to keep firing at Jalen Waddle. We've seen him put up those 150-yard, 2-touchdown games many times in the past. Just hasn't happened yet this season. But we know it's coming. It's in there for sure. I targeted it hard last week. It didn't, or the week before. It didn't quite happen. But I'm going to keep firing my Waddle bullets for sure. Tyreek is one of the top wide receivers on the slate, as he always is. And then the running back situation, I agree. I don't know how to parse this out. I can't give you an answer and say, yes, I know Mostert's going to do this and A-Chan's going to do this. But I know that I want exposure to both of them because they're both explosive. A-Chan has been one of the most efficient backs we've ever seen in history. He's off to an incredible start. You just have to keep playing him until the price catches up to his talent. I don't know what the role is going to look like. As long as Jeff Wilson is still out, I'm firing on A-Chan as well, just because of the big playability. This game, we saw it against Denver. They absolutely destroyed Denver, but A-Chan and Mostert just did not stop. So I don't really care about game script for either of those guys. Mostert's been involved in the passing game a little bit as well. The game he was real heavily involved, Waddle was out. So that's worth noting. But even last week, he had 5 targets. So I think both of these backs are game script dependent. They both have big playability. I want exposure to both for sure. I'm not sure that I can pick and choose which one that I want here. So just give me all of them. I'll spread out my exposure. Might end up with something like a Dolphin or two in every single lineup. It's that good of a spot for him. I will note that Ahmed was out for Denver. So if they do get up, we might see a little bit more Ahmed than Mostert down the stretch. But we always talk about making groups on running backs for most teams on 0 to 1. You can't do that with these two guys. I mean, they've shown us is that going to happen every time? No, but can it happen? Yeah. I mean, can they score 3 or 4 combined touchdowns? Yeah, they can. That's just how the Miami offense is, and the Giants are not going to stop them. This game's in Miami. I love the Dolphins in this spot. It's very rare that we see a double-digit favorite, but yeah, I mean, how can you really argue at this point with the Giants? It's just, again, you're firing on some Giants here because, I mean, they're just going to be playing from behind the entire game. Do I play Breida? Probably not, even if Barkley's out.
Do I hate him? No, because I mean he can get 5 to 7 catches out of the backfield in this game. So I love the Robinson call. I had written him down and I like that call a lot. So definitely going to be someone I'm looking at.
What about Daniel Jones? Like playing
I
just
think
to
he's
save
playable.
the money down.
He's cheap.
Yeah, I do too. Down from Tua to save a little bit of money. You can still run. I probably wouldn't do the Tyreek Waddle double stack with that. I think you need Tua at that point. But like to save some money in a Tyreek stack, you can even play Tyreek in a running back. I think would be totally fine with Daniel Jones as your run back or whatever you want to call him. Like he could certainly run for 80 to 100 yards and run a touchdown in. Like at 5,800, I think he's in play too.
Love that call. Yeah, we should have talked about him. I ranked him DK on DK. I have him second in my rankings this week just because he's so cheap. And I mean, think about the Arizona game. That game was kind of a shootout. He threw for 300 plus yards. I really want Barkley to play this game. I mean, it just helps Daniel Jones so much if Barkley's out there. I do have a cheaper quarterback or in this price range quarterback that I'll pay a little bit more for that we'll talk about here in a couple games that I really like this week. So New Orleans at New England, 39.5 total in this game. This game was at 40.5 when I wrote it down. It's at 39.5. New Orleans has flipped it. This game opened New England -1.5. It is New Orleans -1. Saints. I tweeted this out, Keith. I was doing my going through my stats and data and stuff, and I was like, how did I miss the fact that Alvin Kamara had 14 targets? He had 13 catches for 33 yards. He had an average of 2.5 yards per catch. I mean, if you're going to get double-digit targets at 6,300, that's a wide receiver. That's not even including his rushing ability here. I mean, how do we overlook that? Has that killed Michael Thomas's upside a little bit? Olave, I think, is still going to be that deep threat, but we saw him only have 6 targets last week. It was a tougher matchup for him. Talk to me here about the Saints. This game kind of stinks. Low total, projected to be a low scoring game, but there's a little bit of value here. Kamara at 6,300 is this too cheap for a guy that's going to be this involved in an offense?
Yeah, it's not a great game environment. Low total, slow pace, like you mentioned. So I don't want to target much here, but Kamara is somebody I will have exposure to. I think the biggest thing playing into that right now is Derek Carr's shoulder injury. I'm not targeting the down the field receivers. I was on a little bit of Olave and Shaheed last week when I thought Winston was going to play. Once Carr said he was going to play with the shoulder injury, I came off of that, and I'm glad I did because he did not look great. He was checking everything down. That just puts Kamara right back in play for me. Probably don't want any of the receivers until Carr proves that he's healthy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if anything here for the Saints, it's Kamara and it's Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas 8 catch game for 60 yards, and then at that point you're just kind of hoping he scores a touchdown to hit that upside. But I think DraftKings wise, those are the 2 guys I'm looking at. I agree with you on Derek Carr. As far as the New England side of this game, I mean, they have looked bad. This defense is really solid. I think both of these defenses are in play. For what it's worth, I think the Saints and the Patriots defenses are both in play. Is there anything outside of maybe Derek or Hunter Henry that we're looking at here for the Pats?
No, I mean, I like the Hunter Henry call. I've played quite a bit of him this year, but his price is coming up now. He's 4,400. It's starting to get to the point where it's uncomfortable, but the wide receivers aren't any more comfortable. They spread it around so much. They have Mac Jones throwing them the ball against a really good Saints defense. I think I'm out on the Patriots mostly. Ramondre has struggled with efficiency. You have the threat of Zeke behind him. A little bit of Hunter Henry, but I'm not going to be seeking out any Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, even in a game that they're potentially trailing, it just doesn't. They just don't have anything that I'm super excited to play. You mentioned Stevenson, he's still on a 70% of the snaps, and he's still running the ball 55% of their attempts, but just hasn't been efficient at all. So and like the Saints run defense has actually been really solid this season. So, I mean, just not a spot that I necessarily love. I like the defenses in that game. I think the defenses are
me too.
very, very much in play on both sides. Because I mean, if I remember correctly, the Patriots defense, there's some value there with the Patriots defense.
3,100. Yep. Like that price a lot.
Yep. All right. Moving on. One of those quick games we can get through. This one kind of the same. Baltimore at Pittsburgh, 38 total in this game. Baltimore a 4.5 point favorite. Go Baltimore first. I mean, Pittsburgh, we talked about it last week. Pittsburgh's run defense has really struggled this season. I mean, it was good to see Gus Edwards come back, get 15 carries, and be very involved. I don't know what to do or what to think in this running game just because of Lamar. I could see Andrews, just kind of being Mark Andrews and doing his thing. Like, didn't have a great game last week, but scored 2 touchdowns to, make him one of the highest scoring tight ends. So what are we doing here with Baltimore?
Yeah, I have interest in Baltimore, and it's just because I want some exposure to Lamar. I've played a ton of him this year. Seems like people are down on him. He hasn't been all that popular most weeks. He's running the ball a ton again, and that's probably due to the injury in the running back room. Like Gus is a fine player, but he's not explosive like a guy like Dobbins would be. And it just raises Lamar's ceiling because he's running a lot more because they're running out Gus Edwards and Melvin Gordon in their backfield. That's the reason I want exposure to Lamar. With Bateman coming back for sure and OBJ potentially coming back, it makes sparsing out the wide receivers more difficult. I played quite a bit of Zay Flowers last week when both of those guys were out. He didn't get there. Now that we got both of those guys coming back, it gets even more difficult. So I might just be rolling out Lamar naked. Lamar with Andrews, I'm totally fine with. We know Andrews has that huge ceiling, but I might play some Lamar just by himself. The only problem with that is I would want a Pittsburgh run back, and we're about to talk about those. Those are not comfortable either. So possibly even just maybe a Lamar with no correlation whatsoever, which is not something I often do.
Yeah, so I kind of like the Baltimore defense in this game. So I if Hill sits, I might play a little bit of like Edwards Baltimore defense and hope Edwards just gets that rushing touchdown and puts him in like the 15 to 20 point range here at 5K. And then the Baltimore defense just kind of shuts down the Pittsburgh offense, which doesn't seem to be too hard this season. If I'm playing Lamar, it would be with Andrews or by himself. And I don't necessarily think that I need a run back for Lamar. Like, just like Pittsburgh stinks. Like, who are we playing? Like, Najee Harris actually
backfield and Kenny Pickett at quarterback is not a recipe for success.
Yeah, Najee Harris actually, 5 yards per carry last week, had a really solid game. I don't know. Fairmuth, doubtful. One of the biggest mistakes I made last week was like an error alone, like myself. Sunday morning, about 11 o'clock, I switched from Komet in my main lineup to Fairmuth. That didn't work out.
Ouch.
Yeah. Just a 1v1 switch too. Nothing else changed. It was a 1v1 switch, and it made me so mad at myself, but it happens. Pass catchers here, like, we know Pickens is going to get targets. He probably has the highest ceiling. Austin is getting targets. He's really cheap. Like, if you're looking for a cheap run back, if you're playing like an Andrews Lamar stack, gosh, how excited are you to play Pittsburgh in this spot?
And like, Kenny Pickett might not be good, first of all, and Andy's dealing with a knee injury that looked really bad. I believe he was carted off in that game. It looked like he might miss some time, but surprisingly, looks like he's going to be a full go here. He practiced in full on Thursday, so looks like Pickett's ready to go here. I don't know that helps anything. Pickens would be the guy that I'm looking at, but don't love the price tag. I don't love that Pickett is throwing him the ball. I don't know. Like, I'm not excited about anything on Pittsburgh here. The backfield is a mess. Looked like Warren was taking over, and then Najee had a pretty decent game. Seems like it's just going to remain a 50-50 split here in the backfield, so can't target that. Calvin Austin has a cheap dart throw, maybe. saw the long touchdown a couple of weeks ago. He has that type of big playability, but nothing exciting for me here on Pittsburgh.
I will say, like, if I was running 150, Warren would probably be in my pool because when Pittsburgh gets down, they've been using him a lot out of the backfield, catching the ball. Just saying, if I was running 150, I don't know if I'm running 150 this weekend or not. Busy weekend for me, but I don't love Pittsburgh. I like the Baltimore defense. Like I said, I think that they're one of, if not the top defense on the slate this week. All right, moving on to a game that I really like. I really like this game, Keith. Cincinnati at Arizona. I think this is a fantastic DFS game. Is it going to be a good football game? Probably not. 44.5 total. Cincinnati, a 3-point favorite. I already talked about how I have a quarterback that I really like that's kind of cheap. I love Joe Burrow this week. I feel like him and Jamar Chase are both underpriced, and they're hooking back up. They are in love with each other again. The bro bond is back. The targets are there. The upside is there. Higgins is banged up. They still don't want to attack too much down the field. I don't think Burrow's 100% yet. I love this spot. I think he could throw for 3 touchdowns in this game at 6,200. I think you could get potentially 2 of those. And then there's some run backs on Arizona that we're going to talk about that I really like, because as much as we talk smack on like Joshua Dobbs coming into the season, like he's condensed this offense. They're throwing a ton and he's throwing it to certain people. So game stack wise, I think this game's super interesting, and I really like Joe Burrow, Chase, and I mean Irv Smith coming back. Maybe you could take shots on him, but I really still think Boyd is like the underneath option that they're going to use with Chase if Higgins is banged up. So love this Cincinnati offense this week.
So I'm with you on Chase 100%. I have some reservations on Joe Burrow, and that's just because I'm not sure that the calf is still there. Just has not had it clicking all season long. So I could see Chase having a monster game without Burrow coming with him is what I'm saying, especially with T. Higgins banged up. He's playing with broken ribs, assuming that he does play, but he's practicing. He said he's going to play. But playing wide receiver in the NFL with broken ribs cannot be fun. So no thanks on Higgins for me. That
one
should
hit,
only just
you're done
lead
for the day. One big hit, you're done.
Yeah, absolutely. But load up on the Jamar Chase. I totally love that. He's way underpriced, like you said. They've been like scheming up plays for him out of the slot. Just should have a massive role again. I think 10 targets plus is within his range here for sure. And especially against an Arizona defense that's played better than expected, but they're still not great. I like Joe Mixon a lot too, because their run defense has been really bad. Mixon at 6,400. Like if Higgins is ineffective, which I kind of am expecting here, they might have to lean on Mixon a little bit more. Not a guy that I've played very much at all this season, and even going back to last year, I got off him towards the second half. He just hasn't been efficient for a year plus now. But this is a smash spot for him. So give me some Joe Mixon. Hopefully the explosiveness returns. We know he has the touchdown upside if they get in close. So I like Mixon, and I like the Boyd call too, for sure. Boyd over Irv Smith for me.
Yeah, and I mean, just the thing about Burrow that I like here is just, what makes the hamstring feel better or calf feel better? Matchup with
Throwing
Arizona.
touchdowns.
Matchup with Arizona. They've just been shredded this year. I mean, Cincinnati run defense has been shredded this year as well. So maybe this is a spot we play the high volume James Conner as a run back option. Like even in a trailing game, this guy can get targets out of the backfield. I mean, he seems like a safer option. I don't know if his ceiling is necessarily there. I think we're going to agree, and a lot of us are going to agree this week, that Marquise Brown is the ceiling play and a fantastic pairing with Chase. And in large field tournaments, I don't hate getting some Joshua Dobbs this week. It might sound crazy, but like over 40 rushing yards in 3 straight games, and he's thrown for a touchdown, at least 1 touchdown in 3 straight games. He has over 17 fantasy points in 3 straight games, and they're like, hey, we're just not going to raise his price. Like, I think this is a spot we could play some Joshua Dobbs and Marquise Brown and Zach Ertz. Like, I already said it, man. I've proclaimed my love for this game in general. I am all over this game, and this might be one of those games I have a make or break week because of.
Josh Dobbs has played well. I don't think there's any denying that at all. Way better than I certainly expected. I think way better than most people expected. Flo in the chat saying, let's not chalk the cards, please. I've got bad news. Hollywood Brown is going to be chalk, I think.
Yeah, 5K.
This is yeah. And he's like receiving an elite target share, 10 targets last week. The second time he's been double digits this season. He's had 7 in the week in between. The workload is too good for the price. The matchup against like Cincinnati's defense is not what it was last year. Hollywood Brown's in a really, really good spot. Nobody likes playing Zach Ertz and James Conner. They're looked at as old and dusty, which they might be. But Hollywood Brown is definitely the ceiling play, like you mentioned here. Michael Wilson has had a really nice role too. So if you're looking for a pivot and a way to get some upside, he exploded last week. I'm not sure where the ownership ends up coming in on him. If he's still under the radar, I like that quite a bit. I think Arizona can put up a fight here. They're at home. Cincinnati has struggled all season long, and Arizona has just been way better than expected. So, I definitely want some. Like Chase is going to be chalky on the other side as well. If Hollywood is chalky, I probably don't run that mini stack out a ton. So I'd be looking to Wilson or James Conner as the run back to my Chase stuff. But I know I want to load up on Chase, especially with Higgins hurt. But the Arizona's in a good spot here too. So James Conner would be my second option behind Hollywood. If Hollywood gets too chalky, I'll run some Michael Wilson out too.
It is Thursday night at 11 o'clock on the East Coast, but right now Hollywood Brown is projecting for 5% ownership on our projected ownership.
I've heard a lot of chatter already. Yeah. It's going to get steamed by Sunday for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, for what it's worth, Dobbs is projecting for 3%. So
that will stay. I'm pretty confident in that.
I know, man. Like, sign me up. Sign me up for some Dobbs this week. I cannot believe Washington just missed the field goal. Oh, oh man. I love football. It's so much fun. All right, moving on. Philadelphia at LA taking on the Rams. 49.5 total in this game. Philly a 4.5 point favorite. Go to the Eagles side first. I think that they're going to get a lot of ownership this week, and I think for good reason. You know, this is a good spot against the Rams defense. The Rams defense has been terrible against the run this season. I think this is a great spot for DeAndre Swift. You know, I think a lot of our questions were kind of answered last week with how is Smith going to, you know, fare with Scott and Gainwell back. Well, he did great. He looked great. He looks great in general. You still worry, I think, a little bit about it being like a 3-headed monster just overall. But I think Swift is the lead back that's going to get the first opportunity most of the time here.
Yeah, Swift is the only running back I'm interested in. He seems like he's ahead of the other two for sure. So I like that call. Price is still very fair on him. He's probably not going to see 20 touches, but I think that 15 to 18 range, he can certainly do plenty of damage with that amount of volume. AJ Brown and Devonta Smith certainly very much in play here. Like the Rams defense is kind of like the Cardinals defense. They've been better this year than expected, but I'm not buying into that yet. It's 4 weeks. We think we know what we know from what we've seen already, but it's really not a huge sample. I'm still not sold this Rams defense is all that good. So give me some AJ Brown would be my favorite play here. I think even over Swift. Saw him explode last week. Hurts isn't running as much, and he's expensive. So I don't even know if I'm using Hurts as a like Hurts to AJ. That's a really expensive stack. I might just play AJ Brown and leave Hurts on the shelf this week. There's a bunch of cheaper quarterbacks that we've already talked about being in good spots. So not in love with Jalen Hurts. Of course, he always has immense upside. He could break any slate. So I'm sure I don't completely fade him, but if he gets a little popular, I might be underweight there. Good spot for Goddard as well. The Rams have struggled defending the tight end. We saw him a little bit more involved the last couple of weeks. Still hasn't done a ton with those targets, but I guess only 4 targets last. It was the week before, and the week before that he had 7 targets, but just not a huge role for him. I still feel like he has multiple touchdown upside though, so I'll sprinkle in a little bit of Goddard.
Yeah, I still like Devontae Smith too. Large field tournament stuff.
Yep.
I think AJ Brown's the better play. His first read rate is really high, but like this is a guy that has tremendous amount of upside just in general. So Devontae Smith has that big play ability where I feel like AJ Brown has that big play ability as well, but you're going to get less ownership and, pay a little bit less for Devontae Smith. And ceiling wise, they're pretty similar, ceiling wise. I feel like, both of them are capable of 30 plus point games. AJ Brown with 40 last week kind of showed us that like his red zone presence is still why we pay for him. DJ Moore is just so good. Another touchdown for him, by the way. Just incredible.
Remember when I said he was going to have a massive role this year, week 1, and he did absolutely nothing with 2 targets? Made me look like an idiot. This is the DJ Moore that I was expecting.
Hey, do you remember when I said yesterday is one of my favorite captain plays?
He was going to smash.
Yeah. Man, I'm so sad I'm not going to win a tournament tonight because of Robinson. But anyway, all right. Rams side. I mean, biggest thing here is Cooper Kupp's coming back. We already have Yeezy in chat asking Puka too expensive now that Kupp possibly back. I mean, everything points towards Cooper Kupp being back. He practiced fully Wednesday, practiced fully Thursday. It's a legit question that we won't know until after Sunday. Like how much is Cooper Kupp going to affect Puka? How much is Cooper Kupp going to affect Tutu? And I think Van Jefferson's really going to not see the field much here. It's a pass funnel. I mean, Williams' role is just so insane not to mention at this point. Like, he's just not coming off the field. He has tremendous amount of upside. Every being in my body wants to fade Williams this week or be underweight on him again. Maybe I do it again. Like, I was looking at like my rankings and I ranked him down again. Like, you have to have him in your top 10, I feel like. But, I mean, he's 10th for me rankings-wise, and it's just I want to be underweight on him so much. I really want to play Cooper Kupp or Puka here. I just honestly, Keith, I feel like I'm just gonna play a little of both because I want to play AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and like I feel like they're the most reasonable run backs here.
Yeah, like I've struggled with this Rams team a ton. I've actually redone my rankings a couple of times today. My first update this morning, I moved Kyron way down. Like I had him 3rd initially, I think, on DraftKings, and I moved him way down to like 8 or 9. And then I was like, man, he's playing like 95% of the snaps. Like, I know it's a terrible matchup against a good Philly run defense, but he's just not coming off the field. They keep giving them opportunities on the goal line. Maybe Cooper Kupp coming back cuts into that role a little bit. Like we know they love to target Kupp down there. He is just so twitchy that he's so it works out really well on the goal line. Maybe that hurts Williams more than we're thinking. But let's see. I feel like Williams is of the 3, Williams is the one I'll be most underweight on. Again, like you said, I did the same thing last week. Did not work out because he found the end zone twice. If he ever doesn't find the end zone, I think that's going to be a safe fade for us. And Kupp being back, I feel like they're going to try to get him in the end zone to get his season off to a good start. 8,600 Cooper Kupp might be the most underpriced player on the slate. Like we've seen him at around 10K before in his prime. If he is completely healthy, he could go absolutely nuclear in the spot. I think Puka still has a massive role here, even with Kupp back. Like we saw Robert Woods have plenty of great seasons alongside Cooper Kupp. Puka has been running a little bit on the outside too. Like obviously they're going to leave Kupp in the slot, and he's going to lose a lot of those targets over the middle. But he still was playing on the outside a ton last week in particular. So I think Puka still has a huge role here. Maybe he's overpriced for his role with Cooper Kupp, but until I see it for sure, I definitely want to keep running out some Puka. Dude has just looked so good. I don't think they can just completely forget about him and load up Cooper Kupp with like 20 targets again. So I could see both of these guys getting like 10 targets each or something like that.
I will. So in my research this week, Van Jefferson, 51% of his routes have been in the slot. Only 30% for
he's
Puka.
Dust. Yep.
Hey,
That's the stat right there. Like if Puka was running it exclusively out of the slot, I think he'd be in trouble here. But because he's played on the outside so much, I still think he has the Robert Woods role in my opinion here.
Yep. I don't really have much else to add. I will say that like the Eagles have quietly been really bad against tight ends this season, so like this might actually be a good spot for Higbee. Like he's gonna get the targets. He just needs to score a touchdown. So I think Higbee potentially in our player pool this week just because of the matchup and the spot for him is worth noting. Moving on, Jets and Broncos. 43.5 total here. Denver, a 2-point favorite. We did get a report this week that like the cuffs are going to come off of Hall and he is good to go. No pitch count. What does that mean? Like if he's going to get a 80% snap workload against the Denver Broncos, he might be the most underpriced player of the season. Obviously Dalvin Cook is still there, but like, how do we not like Breece Hall? I really, really like Garrett Wilson this week. Like he's the alpha. His targets are so insanely good, and Denver is so bad defensively. Like I even think like Zach Wilson can hit Garrett Wilson in this game. So I don't know how much Zach Wilson I'd play. He's really cheap. He's 4,900 against one of the worst defenses in the league. Talk to me here. What are your thoughts on the Jets?
I feel like I'm going to have an uncomfortable amount of Jets exposure this week.
Me too, buddy. Welcome to the
club. I'm considering playing Zach Wilson. He looked competent last week.
He's 4,900. Yeah.
And he's 4,900 against the stone cold worst defense in the NFL. It's not even a debate at this point. Like the Bears are right here with Denver. Washington looked atrocious on Thursday Night Football as well. Those defenses are really bad. I'm here to tell you Denver's defense is worse. Mm-hmm. Does that mean Zach Wilson can sit here and shred him? I think it might. I know that Garrett Wilson is extremely talented, and he is way too cheap for this matchup. He's one of my favorite wide receivers on the slate, and I love that the report about Breece Hall came out. Like, I want to play some Breece Hall, but I also think that a lot of other people will as well, and hopefully that will keep Garrett Wilson's ownership down a little bit. He's the guy that I really want to play. It's a fantastic spot for Breece Hall too. It'll depend on his ownership. I'm not going to try to get overweight on if he comes in at 25, 30%, something like that, but he is way too cheap. It's a phenomenal matchup. Like he's seen a maximum of 12 carries so far this year. So what's no pitch count mean? 15, 18 carries. If we're talking about 18 carries at 5,400, that's going to be a tough fade. So I'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully ownership doesn't get too out of control, but I'm just as interested in the passing game as I am in Breece Hall here.
Yeah, I like the Jets a lot. The one thing I haven't said this year. Yeah. I mean, how do you not? Like that's my problem. How do you not just absolutely love this spot for the Jets against this Denver defense? My concern here is, can the Denver Broncos move the ball against the Jets defense? Like Denver is -2. Spoiler alert for the morning grind game. I like the Jets money line in this game. I just like, what are we doing? Like, this is a really good defense. Russell Wilson hasn't been great. Javonte Williams is banged up. I mean, what are we looking at on the Denver side of this game? I'm struggling here, Keith.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a spot that I'm really looking to target. The Jets defense is just so good. Javonte Williams is he coming back this week? Limited Thursday? Who knows? I'm not playing. Yeah, I'm definitely not playing a banged up Javonte Williams against the Jets, but Jaleel McLaughlin has looked good in his limited opportunities. He's 5K. If he was 4K, I might have interest. I think I'm out at 5K. It's probably Cortland Sutton. Maybe keep taking some shots on Marvin Mims. We did not see the role increase that was promised to us. He still only had 2 targets. I didn't look at snap share completely, so maybe he was in on more snaps, but still only the 2 targets. I still believe in the talent of Marvin Mims, though. Just need him to get on the field a little bit more. So Sutton and Judy, I think, and strictly as run backs. I think I'm only interested in Sutton and Judy if I'm playing Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, for every reason why, I think this could be a Jets defense Breece Hall game. Breece Hall has like a huge monster first half, and Dalvin Cook gets a lot of the second half, but it doesn't matter. The Jets defense just crushes this Denver offense. So, I mean, that's one thing to worry about. But all right, last game of the slate here for week 5, Kansas City at Minnesota. Yes, we saved the best for last. We didn't. That's just how it is on the lineups page. Kansas City -3.5. They opened at 5.5. This game's been bet very heavily on the Minnesota side. What are your thoughts here on the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, a fantastic offense in the dome against a terrible Minnesota defense. Sign me up. Mahomes is expensive. I think he's definitely worth it. It's always hard to find stacking partners with him. The wide receivers have been impossible to figure out. So does that mean just playing with Kelsey? It might. But I usually like that third piece too. And finding that third piece has been a total crapshoot this season. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, Sky Moore is he's on the field as much as anybody, but he just hasn't done a ton. He's not earning a bunch of targets. MVS is never someone that I love to play. Rashee Rice is probably the most talented in my opinion. I think Rice is going to be my favorite again here. 3,600, so he's a little bit cheaper than MVS and more. Justin Watson still has a little bit of a role. Like, wide receiver is not fun for the Kansas City Chiefs, but I know I want some exposure to Mahomes and Kelsey. I probably try to find that third piece. I think Rice is my first look, but it's like you're throwing darts when you're trying to pick out the wide receiver.
I think Rice has the highest ceiling outside of Kelsey. Yeah. I really like Pacheco this week.
Yeah, me too.
Really like Pacheco this week. I mean, they want to give him the ball. 20 carries last week against the Jets in a really competitive game. Had a monster game. Like, I don't see the reason not to have exposure to Pacheco. Like, he's another guy that seems underpriced. A lot of people are going to be looking at these wide receivers. I mean, why can't we play Mahomes, Kelsey, Pacheco? That seems like the three main pieces of this offense right now. So, and I don't know if you necessarily even need to play Kelsey at this price. Like, I know on FanDuel, like, I don't even want to rank him on FanDuel, but I did because like he's so incredibly expensive on FanDuel, where like if he doesn't score 2 touchdowns and have like 100 yards, like he probably doesn't get there. So I worry just overall about Kelsey's price and like his overall ceiling. He's the guy that just absolutely crushes in this game 90% of the time though. Maybe I go underweight on Mahomes, Kelsey, and overweight on Pacheco, just to be different on how I approach this game than everybody else. But I have no issues playing Pacheco and Mahomes together this week. And, you know, we don't typically talk running back, quarterback stacks, but Kansas City's just a different breed. They're just a different breed. I think Rice has the most upside. I feel like they want to get Tony going, but just haven't. And I don't know if he's going to or not, but I like Pacheco a lot in this game. Like Kelsey and Mahomes, I think Rice has the highest ceiling if I'm going to play a wide receiver. Minnesota. I mean, we love Minnesota this week. Let's be honest. This is a game in Minnesota. Kirk Cousins shows up. He throws for 300 plus yards. Jefferson has a monster game. Everything's right in the world. Talk to me here about the Vikings.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins was one of the things I got wrong last week. I thought he was going to have a monster game down in Carolina. Just a weird game. He threw the pick 6 to start and just never really got on track after that. So bad week for Cousins last week. Hopefully that keeps him lower on this week because I have a ton of interest here in this spot. We know they're not afraid to throw the ball. They're going to have to do that if they want to keep up with Kansas City. In the dome here should be a fantastic game environment. So we know it's Jefferson who he's targeting early and often. One of the top wide receiver plays on the slate. I think the Jefferson Tyreek decision is quite difficult. I love them both this week, as we do every week. But Jefferson could go absolutely nuclear here in an up-tempo game. Madison is always difficult for me. Hawkinson, I don't want to leave him out. I think Hawkinson is a fantastic play as well. Kansas City has struggled against the tight end. We've seen him with a double-digit targets in several times since coming over to Minnesota. So love TJ Hawkinson as well. Probably leave Osborne and Addison on the shelf. It's like they're just cutting into each other a little bit too much. Jefferson and Hawkinson have so much of this share. So I'd rather just spend up for Jefferson and go Hawkinson, I think. Madison is the one I'm struggling with. He's really cheap. I think that if they want to try to slow this game down, he could have some success here. We've seen the efficiency tick up a little bit. Cam Akers is here now, but I don't think he has a big enough role to take me off of Madison completely. But never an exciting guy to roster, but in a good game environment, could see him with 20 touches if they're trying to slow Mahomes down.
Yeah, I mean, not the greatest spot in the world, but Pro Football Focus has Minnesota as the second best run block, fourth best pass block on the season. So just something to note. And they can't get any pressure on the quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is just going to have all day to throw the football in this game. This is going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I mean, you like the pieces in this game for a reason. It should be a really, really competitive, high-scoring game. Minnesota should keep up. Their offense is good enough that they should keep up. Slow start to the season for them. They really need to kind of get it going here. Yeah, really like this game. I mean, Jefferson's my favorite wide receiver. I think I have him over Tyreek this week as far as if I'm going to pay up for somebody. But can you really go wrong with either one of them? I mean, the biggest difference is I know the Chiefs are going to keep up and this game's going to be competitive. Are the Giants going to keep up with the Dolphins? I mean, that's the question you got to keep asking ourselves with Tyreek Hill this week. All right. I don't think we have anything else to add. KJ Osborne, I would prefer Jordan Addison, but KJ Osborne does have a red zone presence for some odd reason. And don't mind Hawkinson. I like everybody here. All right, let's morning grind game. Let me pull up lineup HQ real quick so we can look at some ownership. All right. Quarterback, 300 plus passing yards. Who do you got this week?
I'm going a little off the board here. There's a lot of cheap quarterbacks in play. CJ Stroud has done it in 2 of his 4 games this year. Matchup in the Dome against Atlanta. I'm on some CJ Stroud this week.
I'm going to go Joe Burrow. I already talked about it. I think this is an excellent spot for Burrow. And hopefully it works out for me because I'm playing a lot of him. Low-owned running back for a touchdown. Again, we're recording on Thursday. Ownership is going to change. Who do you got this week?
I'm a huge fan of this one. I think David Montgomery is going to be really chalky by the time we get to Sunday, but I do not think anyone's playing Jahmyr Gibbs. He does not have a huge role. We know David Montgomery has the goal line role, but Jahmyr Gibbs has big play potential. He could take one in from anywhere on the field. This Carolina defense, rush defense stinks. I'm going to have some Gibbs this week.
I'm going to go Pacheco. I know he's getting really close ownership-wise. We have him at 12%. I don't really love any of the 4 or 5% options right now. So I'm going to go Pacheco. I like James Conner as well. He's kind of in the same range. I like James Conner too. Quarterback, wide receiver, stack for a touchdown.
Wilson squared. Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson.
I hope so. I hope you're right. I hope I lose this question to you. I hope you're right. I love that one. I'm going to go. I feel like this is off the board. Maybe give me Dobbs to Hollywood Brown for a touchdown this week.
Dobbs, I think yeah. Hollywood will be played, but nobody's playing Dobbs, I don't think. And I don't hate it. He's cheap.
Yeah, really cheap. Wide receiver for 8+ targets. Who's getting targeted this week?
Michael Pittman's going to get back above the double-digit target mark, facing a pass funnel, Tennessee defense. Richardson will need to throw more than they want him to, probably.
So I have Garrett Wilson written down, but you put him in a question already. So I'm going to take Garrett Wilson down off my sheet and put in Nuke. I feel like this is the spot. DeAndre Hopkins against a pass funnel. They have to throw the football. Indianapolis is going to try to stop the run. They're going to have to throw the football here, and I think Hopkins benefits from that, so I'll go Hopkins 8+ targets. Tight end for a touchdown. My tight end for a touchdown last week was Cole Kmet. It makes me even more frustrated that I was so high on Kmet and I talked myself into taking him out of my main lineup. Ugh.
Brutal, man.
It was. It wasn't fun.
Well, I'm going back to Darren Waller. Disappointed everyone in an island game last week. I don't think anybody will be on him. Great game environment against Miami. The Giants are going to have to throw a ton. They're going to be trailing in this game. Waller could see a bunch of targets. I like him to find the end zone as well.
I like that call a lot. I'm going to go Hayden Hurst. Just more of like just the matchup in general. Like they have been so incredibly bad against tight ends this year that like my research tells me I need to play Hayden Hurst this week against Detroit in the dome. And I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to play him. I'm going to play some Hurst here, even though like my initial ranking is I wasn't really high on Hurst in general, but I mean, my research loves Hurst in this spot. So got a lot of green highlighter. Yeah. I still do a lot of pen and paper stuff. What up? I just feel like when you're writing stuff down and you're taking notes on stuff, you just remember it more as you like get into doing a bunch of stuff in the weekend. So that's all. All right, and I can go back and look at my notes after I get done with NASCAR stuff on Saturday night. That's the real reason. Defense, 10+ points. What do you got for me defense this week?
Give me Baltimore facing a banged-up Kenny Pickett and just an inept Steelers offense.
I know they're expensive this week, but Baltimore looks to be very low-owned as a defense early in the week. So I'm with you. I have a ton of interest in the Baltimore defense this week. I'm going to go New England. I feel like they're a very underrated defense this week that have always been a team that likes to score defensive touchdowns. And I mean, Derek Carr doesn't look like he's 100%. So give me the Patriots. I'm kind of betting on that home run for New England this week. Let's go to the betting side of the morning grind game. I know you guys love this part of the morning grind game. Give me a against the spread or money line bet that you like this week.
I mentioned it when we were breaking down the game. I cannot believe Houston is an underdog to Atlanta. They've just looked like the far better team. I know they're on the road, but just give me the Houston money line. Keep the points. Plus 110 is the best number I see out there right now.
We're having some fun with this one. We're going to money line. I already kind of said mine when we were breaking down the game, but I'm going Jets money line. Denver's defense has been bad this year. The Jets offense could potentially be okay in this spot, and we know the Jets defense is really solid. So I think the Denver Broncos, I don't know. I think they're going to struggle in this game. Over under, what do you got for us this week on an over under bet?
I think Miami could beat the 47.5 point total by themselves if they want to. So give me Giants, Dolphins over 47.5.
I saw that line and I was like, all right. Well, they didn't watch Dolphins put up 70.
If Barkley plays, that's a smash. Like that game's going over 50 if Barkley plays.
Yeah, that game goes to 50.5 total by lock. So. Yeah.
Yep. That's why I like getting in now.
I'm going to go Arizona and Cincinnati over 44.5. I love this game. Not only from a DFS perspective, I feel like it's a very underrated game this week, and it could be a sloppy, ugly game, and I could be completely wrong, but the pieces that we're looking at, Burrow getting healthier, Dobbs playing way better than we expected. I think this game goes over 44.5. Player prop. What do you got for us on a player prop this week?
We both loved him. We both said he was the top running back play on the slate. Bijan Robinson line sitting at 76.5 rushing yards. Give me the over on that against a bad Houston rush defense.
I write down 2 every week just in case, and I had this one written down. I'm with you. I'm very much on this. My second one that I had written down was going back to the last game we talked about, the Kansas City game. I'm going to go Pacheco over 57.5 rushing yards this week. I think that this line is too low. I feel like he's just someone that is kind of being overlooked by DFS players, by books. He has run over 57.5 3 straight games. The game that he didn't was week 1 against Detroit. Well, we've come to find out the Detroit defense is no joke. So The Giants or the Jets defense last week. The Jets defense is no joke, and he had a phenomenal game. So, yeah, I like this line for Pacheco over 57.5. Let's go to a pick'em play here on the fantasy pick'em sites. Last week we failed. We failed you all. We did not hit our 2-pick power play. We're back this week, and we're going to try to make do on that.
Yeah, let's give them a better effort here. You love the game environment here. You're very much on Joe Burrow, but I think Joe Mixon has a big game as well. Arizona's rush defense has been really bad. It's Mixon more than 68.5 rushing yards.
All right. I'm going to go to a running back as well, and I'm going to go David Montgomery, more than 69.5 rushing yards this week. I feel like this is a spot. David Montgomery gets 20-plus carries. Detroit runs the ball, just absolutely runs the ball down Carolina's throat. And David Montgomery has a big game. He has gone for over 70 in 2 of his 3 starts. The one game he didn't was the game against Seattle, where he went for 67 and still averaged 4 yards per carry. So really like this spot for Montgomery. We talked about him when we broke down the games. Keith, Chicago Bears win for the first time in almost a year.
In the win column.
I know. Your Cubs failed. Now the Bears got to win. I mean, you got to be feeling good as a Chicago fan right now. Any final thoughts before we get out of here for week 5?
I mean, I was kind of starting to get used to the Caleb Williams idea, but we do have another out there with Carolina's pick in our pocket as well. So we'll see how that plays out. But agree, this is a really fun slate here. We didn't touch on it much, but a super backloaded slate as well. I think all 4 of those late window games are playable. So definitely make sure that you're late swapping. Anywhere you get a low owned hit in an early spot, make sure, don't be afraid to chalk up your lineup a little bit around that type of thing. Same thing. If you play a chalky guy in the early window and he fails, go crazy, get really weird with that lineup. Try to find your way into a min cash with it.
Yeah, definitely late swapping this week. The 4 games that we have, is it 4? It's 4 games, right? 4 games in the afternoon. Yep. Just absolutely phenomenal games. Like the afternoon slate, I do the afternoon expert survey for premium content, and was looking at it a couple hours ago, and the afternoon slate alone is just fire. It's so good. So yeah, ton of different ways to approach this slate. Hope everyone has a fantastic week 5. We'll be back next week for week 6, probably on Friday again, because of how baseball schedule is going to go. So thanks for hanging out with us live on YouTube. If you haven't already, subscribe to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind YouTube page. If not, thank you. If you already have, we appreciate it. Back on Monday. Have a good weekend. We'll see you then.